As the traditional family continues to unravel, it was only a matter of time before polyamory and homosexuality united to raise children. A new book details this so-called family whose lifestyle church militant Paul Morano attempts to explain.
I'm Papa, Alan is Dada, and Jeremy is Daddy.
Three homosexual men who made news in 2017 for legally adopting a baby are in the news again. One of the men behind America's real-life version of Three Men and a Baby wrote a book due out March 9th, detailing their unnatural lifestyle and the adoption of a second baby.
For a child, there is no such thing as an intact household when you're talking about a same-sex parenting situation.
Being labeled a so-called polyamorous throuple, the three homosexuals recently adopted a baby boy together after adopting a baby girl in 2017. Missing in the book, however, is the mounting evidence that children are harmed by having same-sex parents.
Sexual revolution is the implementation and spread of the idea that sexuality should be practiced without restrictions and limits.
In fact, claims Father Paul Sullins, a noted researcher and sociologist, the more you deviate from the natural order of the family, the more children are wounded. Sullins has written 4 books and over 100 articles on this growing problem. His studies conclude that children raised by same-sex couples have twice as many emotional problems as those raised by heterosexual couples, and they are 3 times more likely to be suicidal.
Abuse has long-term consequences on a person's life.
A new project, the New Family Structure Study, surveyed over 3,000 adults raised by same-sex couples. It concluded children raised by homosexual couples are more likely to suffer from substance abuse, criminal activity, infidelity in marriage, and poor mental and physical health outcomes. Since so-called same-sex marriage was forced on the nation by the Supreme Court in 2015, more and more unnatural relationships have been appearing on network television. Another so-called throuple that included 2 women and a man appeared on HGTV in February to buy a so-called family home. Their living arrangements included 2 children.
We're a throuple. It's a relationship that's 3 people, not just 2.
It's almost unanimously acknowledged that children suffer, not just emotionally, but they're at higher risks for social and economic and physical negative outcomes.
The legal push to force Catholic adoption agencies to place children with homosexual couples has been well documented and well covered. What the Luciferian media chooses to ignore, however, is the suffering that children endure throughout their lives when formed in families that deviate from the natural order. Paul Morano, Church Militant Evening News, Detroit.
Paul?
Yes.
I'll give you the floor here. This is
the
question is really?
First word that comes to mind is insanity.
Yeah.
But if you have looked at our recent history in the past 50 years, this is an inevitable insanity.
Right.
If I could go beneath the surface for 1 second, this is simply a continuation of the snowball effect that occurred with contraception. You separate sex from baby making, love from life, the unitive from the procreative. This is what you get.
Right.
Adults that want to just fulfill themselves and all of their disordered desires, whatever they may be. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do that, that's one thing. But unfortunately, the children, as the video speaks about, are really the biggest victims in this whole thing.
There used to be. We were talking before the show that there used to be a number of categories that were considered sacrosanct in order for two people to get married. It was your age. You couldn't marry. A 40-year-old couldn't marry a 5-year-old.
And you had to be a certain age to be married.
Correct. Yeah. All of these different, age, sex, one man, one woman,
man and a woman.
All of it, and all of the. Once you broke open Obergefell and said, "Aha! Now we've taken one category." Meaning it has to be a man and a woman. It can be 2 men or whatever. Well, why can't all the other categories now come up for? There used to be a count. It could only be 1 and 1. Even in Obergefell, it was just 1 and 1.
It's very simple. Once the insanity got to the fact that you don't need a male and a female, then why bother with the numbers as you're talking about? Why?
Or age.
Or age.
That's why they want to start driving down the age of
pedophilia
now. Right.
Pedophilia, yeah. Mm-hmm. So all of this is coming to its fruition by virtue of us separating sex from baby making, love from life. God is love, God is life. You cannot separate that without there being a powerful negative impact.
As we reported on last night's show, Jerry Nadler from New York says, we don't need that God. Congress doesn't care about the will of God. Yeah,
exactly. Well, unfortunately, once you take your eyes off God, all of this insanity begins to unravel.
Yeah.
And the family is always the first thing to go.
Sure, of course it is. Paul, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good report. These three men are the first so-called family in the state of California to have three parents stated on a birth certificate.